I'm John. Today we will cover DNP3 secure authentication features in AC 2000. I'll be using version 2.29 for this demonstration. So let us see how to set up the secure authentication initially. So go to Tools, Properties, DNP3 LAN WAN, and in this case, I will go ahead and enable secure authentication v5. So I'll go ahead with the basic option first, shared. So this is the pre-shared key option. And we will also set the MAC algorithm as SSH 256, which is pretty good option. And since we are using DNP3 LAN WAN, we need to use the option net here. This is one thing to take care of. If you are using serial protocol, you may use the serial option. And if you are using network, you need to select the network option here. And we'll use the key wrap algorithm as AES 256. Okay, so select that option, and further, we need to set the key for the pre-shared option. So for that, we will use the default key at this point. So this will be loaded whenever you open the tool. A default key will be available as part of the installation. So let us select that. Let us do the same thing in master mode. Just browse to enable secure authentication option, then shared 256 network and AES 256. Okay, so one thing to so here also I will select the manage key option and select the user as 1. Just make sure that all other simulation options are okay. Yeah, I'm trying to use the loopback option here for the demonstrations. I'll disable the UDP listen functionality so that it can communicate each other. Okay, so now I'll switch to the RTU mode on the right side and master mode here. Let us run the RTU. And in the master, we'll make the connection. So I'll set the IP as 92.1. Make a connection. Yeah, it's connected at this point. Let us do a link status. Everything is good. When we try to do the control, we shall do a control. And here we will select the user number as 1, because that's the user we have identified. And try to send a control command. So let us issue a control command. Yeah, I need to select a point ID here. Okay, so it give an error that authentication is failed. So that means when the select was issued, there was an authentication challenge from the other side. So RTU is configured as DNP3 secure authentication mode. So it is asking for the authentication request. And it is challenging the master to provide all the information. At this point, it doesn't know which user will be used for the this control. So and right now it is failed. It has failed primarily because there is no session key created at this point. So you can see that there's an error responded from the RTU based on no authentication performed, right? So now let us go back to the master, go to secure authentication and ask for a key change. So the first task will allow to perform a key creation. So you can see that when we do the session key change request, status was requested. Yeah, session key status request was requested and user number was specified as 1 because that was the user number configured at both sides. As a response, RTU responded with the details of the user number 1, and it said that key status is not initialized. MAC algorithm is not used. Now master is providing the information. And you can see that it's a key status change is requested with the encrypted data, and as a response, it was applied. So you can see that user number is applied. All the other informations are applied based on the request, and key status is OK at this point. So that means the secure authentication session key has been established between master and RTU. And now at this point, if we go ahead and issue the control, let us see what happens. OK, so you can see that the select relay was requested. An authentication challenge was requested from the RTU as earlier. And now master has responded with the authentication object, which includes the user number and MAC value. User number is 1 and MAC value is as per the calculated value in the master. Then further, you could see that the command was initiated. And further, can see that operate request was initiated. And further authentication challenge was requested from the RTU for the operate request. It was responded properly. Yeah, the MAC value was provided as earlier. Yeah, here this is a critical message, so that's why it was requested. And finally, the operate response from the RTU was provided by allowing the control operation. So it's a sequence of operation done here, right? So this gives the feature, secure authentication feature in the pre-shared mode, pre-shared key mode. I will switch to the other modes of operation so that I will stop the master and RTU. Let us go back to the DNP3 secure authentication option. And instead we'll change the mode to symmetric AES. I'll keep all other information as same. And based on the symmetric key, there will be some changes here. So that need to be a root key to support the symmetric key exchange. So you can see that when you change the option here, AC2000 automatically provide you a certificate authentication key. You can regenerate this key if needed. If you are not really doing that, then you can continue with the same user. Okay, I'll create a user with the role operator. Okay, select that option here. Okay, so now keep all other values same as earlier. A change other than this symmetric AES 256. Okay. Now let us go back to the master. Make the same change here as well. and I'll use the same root certificate or root key and use the username as operator. Okay. I'll clear the messages at this point. Okay. Now let us run the RTU side. Select the master, make the connection, send the link status and reset link. Now we shall try the same operation. So here, need to specify the username, I guess. Okay, let us try. So here, we'll send the operation, which is as viewer relay as earlier. You can see that it is not applied, right? You can see that the error response from the RTU because authentication was not established. Now let us select the session key in this case. Yeah, now we have the session key. Everything looks good. Now go back to the SPO relay and perform the operation. I see an error from the other side. So let us see what is the reason for the error. Yeah, I think it was not included because the user was not selected in this case. So username need to be selected prior to sending the request because the other side will be validating the username along with this operation. So let us redo the command. Okay, perfect. So in this case, in the previous case, we were using the user number, and in this case, we need to use the username. So that is the primary difference. So you could see that the command is successful. It asked for the challenge, and there was a response, and the select was confirmed, and operate request was made, and challenge response was done. Finally, operate response was received. So yeah, so we can see that all the transactions are successful. We could also do a key change request. So if there is a key change required, we could do that using this mode of operation. So let us try to issue a key change request. So you can see that the key has been updated. In this scenario, there was a request made. With the key change method, it said that this will be the method used and the username was specified. And as a response, provided the details of challenge from outstation. Further, the details of the key was provided and MAC value to authenticate the same has been provided. Finally, RTU provided the key change confirmation. Now, we could issue a control and see whether RTU will accept it. So now everything is good here. And you can see that RTU did not accept the control because a key change was done in between the master and RTU, right? So now, since there was a key change, the session key need to be renewed. And yeah, now we have the session key with the new key between the master and RTU. And at this point, we may issue a control and verify it. So you can see that now it is successful. There was a key change done between master and RTU, and based on that, the RTU is expecting a key change, session key renewal. And once that is done, the control is successful. So this is the two operations that you could do with pre-shared key. In pre-shared key, you could do the session key change, but in the case of asymmetric key, you could also do a update key change if needed. Now let us try the final mode of operation. I will select, instead of selecting the pre-shared and asymmetric, we'll go ahead and select the SHA-256 option under asymmetric. So let us go with this mode of operation now. We have already tested shared and symmetric. I will go ahead with the asymmetric option. So for this, we will select the SHA-256 for the example. And once this dropdown is changed, you will see an entirely different option here, right? You could look at the certificate authority key. So we'll create a new one in the RTU. So you can see that a certificate authority key or a root key has been created. And we will also have an outstation key generated. Okay, so you can see that another private key is generated. So now we have two keys to manage. One is the certificate authority or a root key. We could export this. For this example, now what we have to do is we have to export and import the key into the other AC2000 instance. Because if there is a communication between master and RTU, both the sides need to have the same root key and outstation information or public key of these two entities need to be exchanged. So that means root key, if the root key was generated somewhere else, then you have an option to import it in AC2000 and outstation key, public key also can be exported separately. So yeah, let us do that here. Yeah, so now we are exporting the certificate authority key. So I'll go to the I'll create one folder and I'll export the certificate. Okay, I'll go to the outstation and export the same. So this would be the public key of the public certificate information of the outstation. So now, since we have exported these two information, let us go to the master side of it. In master, we need to import these two operations, right? So now I'll switch to the asymmetric operation, go to manage key, and here we have the certificate authority key, right? So we have already exported it from here. I will go ahead and import that option. So that has been the public key of the root has been imported here. In a typical scenario, you might be having the certificate key generated from somewhere else. So in such cases, you can import into both these tools, whether it is in the master mode or RTU. And let us also import the public key of the outstation. So you can see that the public key has been imported into the master simulation mode. Now let us create a new key for the operator. So typically, master side will be determining the user. So we could create the key and the master side. But if you have the user keys generated somewhere else, you could also import it here. Now let us export this option. So I have exported it. I'll click OK and go to the user key and import. So you can see that the user key has been updated here. Click OK. Okay. Now let us run the RTU mode and connect from the master. Okay. And make a link status request. Everything is good. Let's do a control request. You can see that it's an error. It's not allowed to do between these nodes because there is no secure authentication key generated. So now let us do the once button and do the session key exchange and go to the control and select the SPO. Username is already selected. Only change done is the mode of operation. Perform the authentication and everything is successful. We could also do a update key request. Update key is also successful between the master and RTU. If you do the control request, it is expected to fail. Yeah. Now there is a failure, and now we go back to the secure authentication and do the session key change. Now the session key is updated between master and RTU. Let us go back to the controls and issue the SPO. You can see that everything is successful here. In secure authentication with certificate, you could also do an update key authentication. So I'll clear these messages and show how this works. So we could do an update key authentication, and in between, if the master and RTU need to authenticate either side, they could use this option. So here there is a challenge data, and further in the response, it provides all the information. And further update key confirmation is also sent so that this MAC value can be exchanged and authenticated whenever is required. Okay, and at this point, yeah, you can continue with the session key change or update key change as required. So these features are supported in AEC 2000 at this point, and you are free to test with all these capabilities in the tool. You can also enable the aggressive mode in AEC 2000, which will allow to reduce some transactions between master and RTU. So here, for example, here, if you browse to the aggressive mode, master will predefine or pre-include necessary information in the request so that RTU don't have to, request that separately. So now to demonstrate that, we shall do a session key change and go to control. And here we shall. Okay, so I think the aggressive mode need to be enabled at both sides. So I think we did not do that. So let us enable that at both sides. Clear messages. Make the connection. Send the link status. Secure authentication key change. The control So in this case, you can see that the select was requested. And authentication was done. And authentication response was also provided. And you can see that in the operate request, authentication object was already included so that RTU don't have to, separately ask for the authentication information. So this is one way of reducing the number of transactions. Along with the control, master will pre-include the authentication data so that RTU don't have to ask for it. So these are the features available in AC 2000, free to use this tool to test and validate these features in the RTUs. Thank you.